Welcome back to the Make It Count podcast.
I'm Marcus Mire, founder of Mire Group CPAs and the Total Control Accounting System.
And I'm Tyler Warner, small business owner with a lot of accounting questions.
Today we're talking about being a customer of your own business, what that looks like, or better yet, what that feels like.
Probably pretty painful.
Yeah, pretty painful. So, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, did a Facebook Live on this, and it's gotten some pretty good traction, which was about just kind of thinking through, as you like to call it, the buyer's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't come up with that term.
Yeah, I know, but I like to say you
Sure,
did.
yeah.
It gives a little more credence to the podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
We've got the founder of the buyer's journey. And just kind of thinking through what it's like to be a customer of your own business and really doing that. So I know for us this year, just kind of jump into it, when we started before tax season, tax season's a big kind of push where we get a lot of client contact. So we kind of started thinking through, like, what does that look like at every level, at every touch point from the client experience? And I'll tell you, it's pretty eye-opening when you think about it. And if you are in a service-based business, especially, but even products, you need to be thinking about how can you make your client's journey frictionless. And really, journey is, getting to closing the deal, right?
Right.
Whatever that looks like. If that's
And even servicing them throughout.
And servicing them, yeah. So in the service-based business, obviously you've got a longer period of probably touch points than you would just like in an e-commerce transaction. But the principles are still the same, which is make things frictionless on your client. And a lot of ways to do that is through software, systems, and really a thought-out kind of plan.
Yeah. I know when I was in web design, that was always one of the things that was really cool about technology, is that it was sort of raising the bar, I always thought, in terms of customer service.
Absolutely.
And now those things have kind of become the expectation.
Yeah.
These online portals.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. I wrote down a couple points just around this process of going through your process, which is, what are the pain points? So like what, and this inherently, you deal with a service provider or somebody that's, you're buying something from, and you think about, like, you get to a step and you go, why would they do this? Like, why do they make me click here and go there, or move to a different website, or go get my banking information when my credit card's right in my wallet? Like, those kinds of things. So just be thinking through, and I'll give you a quick story. Kind of what was the genesis of this video for me was a transaction I was going through. And I was on somebody was rendering the service to me, needed a lot of information from me. Okay. And the request for that information was really manual. It was an email. And I know people are going to say, well, how's that manual? But here's my point. It had a 15 question list, but nowhere could I type in next to the answer. It wasn't a type form, a Google form. It wasn't a portal. It was, hey, respond to this email with your own 15 responses. The classic see below in red.
Yeah.
Right. It was that. And I'll take it a step further. It was asking me for very personal information. So not secure. So that kind of got my antennas up.
Right.
And it also made me think, how many people just do this without even asking? Yeah. But also not convenient. So it was definitely a friction point of me thinking, man, what are they doing? Why would they do this? I know the business they're in. I know they have software. Mm-hmm. The second point of that story, which I think is going to dovetail into something else we're going to talk about, was I know on the back end of the receipt of that email was a very manual process. Because somebody was going to have to take my information that I typed in the see red below,
right?
And which I didn't do. I sent a share file. I typed up in a Word document. I sent it via share file.
Show you, man.
That's right. Yeah, I'll see your see below and raise you a share file. But I sent it back via share file and a PDF, so all secure. But anyway, I know somebody on the end of that, especially getting a PDF,
password protected.
Was gonna, that's right. They had to call me for the password, by the way. I put the friction. I put it back on them.
I had to mail you.
In 3 to 5 days, you will get my pen.
Yeah.
But I know somebody on the back end of that was having to take that information and type it in.
Right.
So right then and there told me, okay, they've got somebody in a position that has to do a job that quite honestly a piece of software could do.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of just where this started. I mean, kind of from your experience in web development and working with a lot of people's websites, is that something that you guys would go through? Would you guys whiteboard? And I think you kind of mentioned earlier before we were talking about you doing that at your own company.
I know, yeah, we did that. And a lot of times, honestly, our clients would hire us because they were going through that process. They had realized, okay, something's kind of clunky, especially when I was kind of working with other software developers. Often the work that they were doing was trying to make something more efficient, either for their internal processes or their customer-facing processes. So,
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of the work that's being done in software for sure.
Yeah.
And then from like a sort of customer service standpoint, I know just like e-commerce is a great example of how there's been so much advancement in like that customer service side of things, from like when you think about, like Amazon has just sort of set the bar of like the one-click checkout.
Zero friction.
Yeah, exactly. And so things like shipping tracking, that's like so easy now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Compared to the other day I bought a computer. All I had to do was take the shipping number I got and just put it into Google search. I didn't have to like log on to like UPS or whatever it was. Like you just literally Google, throw in the URL bar your shipping number, and it knows. Google recognized like, oh yeah, it's in Memphis or wherever it was.
Well, let me just jump in real quick and make a point. And I hope this resonates with people. The status quo is only good enough until your competitor does something different.
Right.
So the status quo for you and I would have no problem going to FedEx.com. There's probably right there on the FedEx website a big bar that says track your shipment. Control V, paste that right in there, done. But what they did was make it such that you're now talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And so while the status quo might have been a couple clicks, FedEx.com, paste a link, since the competitor doesn't do it, you remember it. And that's what I want. Hopefully people get out of this in terms of thinking about their own processes is your processes. If you think I'm in an industry, which is what the service I was getting was in an industry that has largely been, what's the term I'm looking for? Not innovative, not disrupted. Largely hasn't been disrupted.
Yeah.
Everybody feels like, well, we can get away with the 15 bullet point.
They're not feeling that pressure.
That's right. But man, don't be the person or the business that's just doing the status quo because everybody else is. Because I'm telling you, if you take the time to innovate, people will notice.
Yeah, and I want to even say further, because like you might not even be feeling it, but like there's that, I forget what brand it is. It's some, and it's not Lysol, maybe Febreze or whatever. And like they talk about like nose blindness, how you can walk into a room, or like my car, for example.
I've been in that car.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, what's wrong? And they're like, dude, it stinks in here.
Yeah.
Like I've got nose blindness. Well, most business owners have the same thing. They do this thing every day. Their employees do it every day. And generally people aren't going to be complaining, especially if it is sort of the norm.
That's right.
So getting somebody from the outside to kind of go through the process. I was part of a real estate startup, and we would always recommend like find your pickiest friend, right? The person that's like gonna show up at your Christmas party and just point out everything wrong with your house. Like invite that person over before you sell your house, because before you stage your house to sell, because they're like, oh, why do you have this here, that here? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to change that up.
Right.
But point is, like, find somebody like that. If it's just a past customer would be a great person, or we've even hired a consultant to do it that kind of specialized in that. And she literally, like, I think she called our office one time and like asked to pay attention to like how we answered the phone and like how we answered questions, and then showed up and was like, hey, no one told me even how to get to your office, just like all of these things. And it just starts to like kind of open your eyes of like, whoa, okay, there's a lot of places where you can inject more clarity and
absolutely,
and like we were talking about today, a lot of those things don't have to take a ton of resources. They just need to take some attention.
Well, I think what you always have to do is, and I know people in my industry, it's bad, and that's why we knew it. We could do the status quo, and for us, it was No, we don't want to be that. We want to be something that you'll talk about on a podcast or you'll reference to your friends. Or we want to do something different. But I think the point is you have to work on your business. You hear that term often. I know people, but it's so true. Like for us, it was sitting in a conference room. We actually went to the public library. Got these awesome conference rooms,
Right.
big, huge whiteboard, and literally took a half a day and wrote down, okay, if we do this, what does it look like to the client? How do they feel about it? Is it too many clicks? I mean, it sounds silly for an accounting firm, but we're just trying to make it so simple to do your tax return, at least that part of our business. You have to be thinking about that.
Right.
Because if you want to be a business that's a thriving business, you don't want the status quo.
Yeah.
You want people to say, man, they've got it, they understand.
Right.
And I think, I've heard Mark Cuban say this before, and he says, you have to be thinking about how somebody else can kick your ass.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
you have to be thinking about that.
Right.
Like, what if somebody comes in and says, look, we all as a group here of pest control businesses,
Yeah.
we all agree that this part of our business sucks, but look, if we all collude, nobody fixes this, we can all live by the status
Right,
quo.
yeah.
But then the one guy from out of town,
Yeah.
like-
Or he's always talks about like he runs his business like there's somebody staying up all night.
right?
Trying to figure out how to take his business
Absolutely.
down.
Yeah, and so I think we've kind
Yeah.
of
He's got too much hustle for me.
yeah, too much. I like to sleep actually.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fine. Go ahead. Help yourself.
Yeah, right. Kick my ass. So another thing, kind of 3 points. Go through the process yourself, and then on the internal side, start to think about when somebody goes through your processes and initiates a sale. Where are you manual? Where are you pushing paper around? Where do you have software systems that don't talk?
Yeah.
Did you guys do? I mean, we talked a little bit about that in terms of a lot about our business, but from what you're seeing in customers, and are people implementing software more
Yeah,
that you see?
For sure. I mean, there's always been that. It's really kind of saving data, right? So now people are used to logging into things and having saving the information. So forms, as unattractive as that sounds,
Yeah.
those have gotten a lot easier to do, to where it used to be, it was some real IT resources to set up. Okay, we want to have this intake form, but have progress saving to where you didn't have to, if it was a 3-page form, you could come back to it at a later date.
You could bounce.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
there's so many services that Typeform, Google Forms,
Yeah.
Google Forms by default injects all the results into a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So really, that's what's cool to me is there's so many resources available that you don't have to be an IT guru to
Right.
really figure out. You can kind of get up and running, and if you're Zapier, whatever you want to call
Zapier,
it.
yeah.
And there's a few other services if this then that.
Yep.
You can kind of tie all these things together, and you can start to. I would just recommend going to those websites.
Yeah.
It would probably spark ideas of we have those two apps. There's a way we can connect them
Yeah.
together, and so yeah, I think it's a mentality first. It's
Yeah.
it's being open to, hey, there's probably some things we can improve here,
Yeah.
and then inviting that conversation. And then what's cool is just from being part of those conversations in my own business, and then being part of them for other clients, I can tell you those things have gotten a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree. I know it just takes a little bit of foresight and the I'm not too busy mentality. You got to get rid of the I'm too busy mentality, because you want to build, and that's one thing. It's our tension here is we always are trying to step back, but we have work to do, right? I mean, everybody gets that. That's the tension in a
Right.
business. You got work to do, but man, if you don't step back and look at your business and how it's running and how it's operating, you
Yeah.
will not get to that next step.
I know I love so I think small businesses have a huge advantage if they use a CRM. And CRM is typically thought of as a sales thing, but any sort of client relationship manager, you can tie that in to your phone system. You can tie it into your email.
Yep.
We had our entire staff using one system. So
What were you using?
We were using Freshdesk. I think
Okay.
it's they've changed the name of
Yeah.
it, so I forget now. But we had essentially one email. So you would email
I remember that.
team, and
Yep.
it would go to the right staff person, because we had it rigged on the back end.
Yeah.
Like with all these filters and rules and stuff like that. And so the customer never had to worry about emailing the right person because we had different, we had designers, developers, different people at different stages of the process.
Right.
And so we really kind of geeked out over that kind of stuff.
I love
and
that stuff.
Yeah. And just really tried to set up this, this system. But I think people hear that and they're like, okay, that sounds like AT&T, right? Like you call and they've got, let me type up your, your past phone call or whatever. But I think small businesses can use that and still have great, customer service. It doesn't have to be so cold.
Yeah, I think, man, that's a really good point. And one thing that you're saying, it resonates with me and makes me think of, and I've said this before, is I don't think people realize the power of these cloud-based applications at a really cost-effective price that make you look like you have your act together.
Yeah.
I know some of the things that we do internally, and the things we do externally, people probably think we're paying, and we are paying a lot for software, but not. That's because we use a lot of them. But the certain ones at the price level of the particular software, very affordable, and they can make your business look so great. I gave the example the other day about when we hired the intern and we knew she had been onboarded before she started. We knew her favorite snack. Like, that's a simple, very silly example, but it just. Man, these software, that's all these people do.
Well, for web design, right? We were a small company.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you called, the system could, and as soon as we either typed your name or I want to say we even had it to where if numbers it recognized, it would just pull up their contact information because that's how the software worked.
Yeah.
But tied to everyone's profile, it had their website links, their login information. So we were like doing web help, right?
Yeah.
So if you would call, like within seconds, we could have your website pulled up, be logged into it because we used like password managers and things like that.
Yeah.
And so it was just super helpful. Like, okay, I'm right there. What's the problem? Boom, you're Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
And like that, we weren't like a Fortune 500 company.
I know, but you had the tools as though you did. Yeah, I really do think there's just a gap between small businesses. That like one's doing things kind of the way they've always done them, and like there's a couple reasons for that. Aversion to change is one thing, but also just people I think just perceive, man, the software is going to be difficult and or expensive. And I'm telling you, like I use these things daily. Like I think I was telling you I was getting all excited before I got a bank account set up online called Relay, like an online bank.
Yeah,
it is so user friendly.
Yeah,
like and I know in 6 months I'm going to have. I'm saying this was June 4th. Let's check me in 6 months. I bet you in 6 months I have everything moved there.
Yeah.
It's just so easy.
I would say you got to have like a glass half full like mentality with software. Like I almost just like anything I think I'm like, oh, sure, there's a software out there that can do with it. And like most of the time there is,
Yeah, and I would say this too. We're kind of going off here, but if you are, let's just say you are I'm not gonna say a boomer, but what's the decade before the boomers? That Gen
Z? No, Gen Z's after us.
I don't know what I am. I'm like on the cusp of a millennial.
I'm like barely.
You're a millennial.
It depends on who you talk to. Like I'm like right on the edge, I think.
But my point is, if you think that, and if you're somebody in your 50s trying to render services to a 24-year-old, they for sure think that.
Yeah.
Everything should be like, well, of course there should be a piece of software that I can use to do this. Or I should or you don't like the default is that you have an app. You should have an app.
Sure.
That's how they do everything. So I just want to challenge people. That's really the thought process behind this podcast is
I think
about it.
The reality is if you don't like even just being forthcoming with information, like people are not going to call. Younger people are generally not going to want to get on the phone and call somebody. Like that's like a huge chore.
Dude,
They'll just move on and go to.
That's so funny you say that.
We're not used to not having an answer. Imagine that. Like, just have empathy for somebody who's never gone without an answer in their life.
Yeah.
And then, like, you don't give them an answer. You think they're going to wait around? No, they're going to move on till they get the answer.
Let me ask you a question. You're in real estate. I see this all the time. So our neighborhood has a Facebook group. And like. Our neighborhood. It's like this older neighborhood where people are moving in and redoing all the houses and all that. And so all the time people post, my house is for sale. Sometimes, and I do not know why, they will not post them. It's the one thing everybody scrolling with zero attention span wants to know. How big is it? What's the price? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Send me a DM. Like, what?
Yeah.
Just put the price.
Yeah. No, that's.
And you're real estate, so I'm asking you. Like,
well, I can tell you there's a lot of different reasons. One, some brokerages actually change that. Not to get on a big soapbox about it, but some brokerages actually train their agents to do that as like a sales tactic. And so if it's just a homeowner, they could just be none the wiser. Just like, oh, look at my house, and they may be feeling like that's a little too much information. Put the price and stuff. They want to be private.
Right.
So it could be that, but yeah, some agents, they'll do like. They'll want you to message them for the price so that magically
friction.
They'll, but just go on Zillow or any real estate website and find it. So it's, I think that's that's why it feels weird, right? Is because you're withholding information that's really not, it's available anyway. That's why it feels like friction. Well, it's not really like you're giving value.
Right. All right. So, kind of three things we'll kind of bring it home here. Go through the process yourself. We kind of camped on that a little bit. Think about where it's manual. And that kind of dovetails in where it's manual either on the customer-facing side, but also, like I mentioned before in that email I was mentioning where the person had to type in the email, like think about it when you're on the sales end of that, receiving that sales order. How are you going to fulfill it? Is it very manual? And the third thing would be, where are your processes confusing and or cumbersome? And I will tell you what we've done to bridge this gap. Again, back to software. We use a tool called Loom, which is just a screen capture video share where we basically go over whatever the client's doing. We do it ourselves and show it to them, and then we put it in their project management account. They got it. So a good example is, how do I reconcile my bank account in Xero? We show them. When we just say, hey, anytime you want to access that video. And we also use a lot of graphics, and we're even starting to do process mapping and workflows with flowcharts. So my point is, like, make it easy on people. Like, dumb it down. Don't get romantic about the fact that people don't have attention spans. They don't. So So do you want to play in the world?
Ornery about
it. Like don't be the old man, get off my lawn. Like, I get it. I wish I had better attention span. I wish my kids did, but this is the world we live in.
Right.
Do you want to get the sale or not? Do you want to make it easy or not? Make it easy, dumb it down, and I promise you it will work better.
Yeah. Good stuff. If you want some more information or looking for a good place to get started, go to mire.group. And you can take a self-assessment there to see kind of where you are with your accounting specifically. And and certainly that's a part of this mentality, right, of kind of automating things and looking for where there's bottlenecks you can wipe out. I know you guys obsess over that stuff with the accounting side.
We did one today. We love it.
Yeah. So mire.group, check it out. It's a good place to get started. And that's it.
All right. See you next time. After you just do like